It's Sunday morning with Mark Sainsbury.
Business time here on Sunday mornings. Time to get in the good doctor, Dr. Harold Hillman. Of course, he's a leadership coach, author, celebrity speaker. The Imposter Syndrome. That was your book, wasn't it, Harold?
It was.
Autobiography.
No, I bet. I bet.
All right. And don't forget, Harold came over here. He got lured away from Manhattan by Fonterra.
That's right.
And so, listen, we want to talk today about micromanagers.
Yes.
What exactly is a micromanager?
Well, from the eyes of a person being micromanaged, a micromanager is a pain in the butt. It's somebody who is in your way. It's someone who wants to be across details and be more. They want to be more hands-on around things that they've actually delegated to other people. And so it gets a little confusing for the employee who's going, wait a minute, you hired me to do this job, and now you're all in this space. And so it feels a bit intrusive, and from the employee's perspective, Mark, it feels like you don't trust me. It defines a bit of a trust issue. Of course, from the...
Well, is it a lack of trust? I mean, it's hard not to see it that way, Harold.
It could be, Mark, particularly if... in fact, the person is skilled, and there's some reason that the boss is hovering a lot closer. There are these two components that you tend to focus on around micromanagement, and one of them is this thing around trust. And so sometimes if you do have a boss that's micromanaging you, you might want to sit down and just sort of find out, like, is there something that I'm not doing or not saying, or is there something that you need differently that would allow you to pull back a little bit? Is there something that I'm not doing correctly? I think sometimes you just basically need to take it to the manager to, number one, give them a little bit of feedback that, hey, you're crowding my space a bit, but number two, maybe there is something.
Because I was going to say, are there circumstances where it's appropriate to have someone micromanaging?
You know what, Mark, there are. It's one of those things. Sometimes we have people, think about a young apprentice or intern who comes in eager, wants to get their hands across a whole lot of different things, and maybe haven't gotten enough traction. And you don't want them to go up a learning curve so quickly that all of a sudden, there's a long way to fall, particularly if they don't have good experience. So sometimes you do want to stay close to people who are relatively new or doing something for the first time, and gradually begin to pull away after you have confidence that they have their hands on it. And Mark, frankly, there's sometimes when companies are doing investigations or have to get deep down around details and analysis where it's where it's important. And I think that in those situations, yes, micromanagement is probably appropriate.
I mean, you've been across a lot of companies, Harold. You get brought in to sort of look at things, fix things. Is there a certain type of personality that is a micromanager?
Yeah, Mark, you probably, my guess is you can probably think of a boss or two in your illustrious career. I certainly can as well. These are folks who typically they don't have what you would call a high-risk profile. They are very careful about taking chance or stepping out on anything that doesn't have a lot of data behind it. So they just get really anxious, and it translates into control. From their vantage mark, they just care. They don't want anything to go wrong. They're
covering their butt.
In the case of somebody who is absolutely out of control, very often they're absolutely protecting themselves.
Hey, the other thing I want to talk to you about is building credibility, Harold.
Yes.
Okay, for starters, what is credibility?
Credibility is, look, I use the word believability when to use it we're talking the same thing. So when a person is credible, in your eyes, they are believable. And there's two components to that. One of it is you're believable because you actually can do what you say. So you are capable. You can't come in a certain role. We expect certain things, and we see it. The other component of credibility is more subjective, and that's, again, around this issue of trust. And that is, you may be capable in terms of what you say you can do, but there's something about you that just doesn't make me willing to put myself in your hands.
Can you build credibility?
You can. you can build credibility. It is. It ultimately boils down to making sure you have runs on the board, score. You're able to bring some things across the line, because if you can't deliver, you're not going to have credibility. And then the second component is is mostly the larger one, Mark, and it goes back to that trustworthiness. And if you feel that there's some relationships that are strained, or for that matter, just don't have any traction under them, sit down with individuals, invest in relationships, take people out for coffees, get to know them broader than just spend some time on what we call the human capital, the social capital side of the business, Mark, and that is, if you invest in relationships in the long term, it typically will pay off a bit more.
Hey, look, I want to test your credibility here, Harold. Last week we talked about, you went away and you promised me you were going to write an entire speech, an entire presentation consisting entirely of buzzwords and all that sort of those stupid cliches. Have you finished your homework?
I did finish my homework. So the very next day, I stood in front of an executive team, a very impressive executive team, and I told them my commitment to you. And I tried in the first hour to dance around the word paradigm.
Paradigm is a very good start.
I tried, and finally, one of the guys sitting there said, "Harold, we know that you got this ban on buzzwords, but paradigm is the word that we're looking for."
Well, there we are. Sometimes you just have to cut to the chase. Hey, good on you, Harold. Harold Hillman. Of course, check out his website. It's sigmoidcurve.com. Sigmoidcurve.com. And the good doctor will be back with us next week.